This is a Mandelbox in 3D. A Mandelbox can be defined for any number of dimensions. A Mandelbox in one dimension would just be a display of dots on a line. In 2 dimensions, we see complex patterns on a plane. With every extra dimension, the complexity of the Mandelbox increases dramatically. When we try to display more than 3 dimensions, we cannot display its full complexity anymore. This is the scale -1.5 Mandelbox in 3D. The scale parameter is the main parameter that classifies the Mandelbox. We cover in 3 shows 3 different Mandelboxes with 3 different scale parameters. If it wouldn't be for the different scale parameters, these 3 Mandelboxes would be the same. Here we cover the scale -1.5 Mandelbox. For a better understanding, we just look at the XY plane, removing the Z dimension. The specific layer we chose is in the middle of the Mandelbox. Now the coordinate center represents the 0 location. It is the center of the whole Mandelbox. Every point is starting from the 0 location, because the Mandelbrot method is applied. This is why the grid is still empty. Although the grid is 3-dimensional, everything will happen on the plane. We use the perspective for a wider and more spectacular view. Every movement you see on the Z-axis only represents the movement distance on the plane. The grid is divided into squares of size 1 and concentric circles. We have marked 3 circles. The inner and smallest circle is a unit circle. This is where most of the action takes place. The second circle is just for orientation, and the biggest outer circle is a bailout radius. Points leaving this radius are considered divergent. They are the ones we have seen marked in colors before. The first iteration has 0 for its initial values, for every point. Now, the last transformation, the addition takes place. Finally, the points become observable. These points move around during the iteration process. During this process, some of these points leave the bailout radius. Points that left the bailout radius are marked in a color. The different colors indicate in which iteration that happened. This is how the colorful image from our Mandelbox plane arrives. The first transformation is a box fold. The plane is folded twice, just like a letter, but on both axes one after another. Now the circle fold is perfectly visible. Usually this transformation is called ball fold, but since we only observe 2 dimensions, we call it circle fold. The circle fold inverses the points with distance above 0.5 and lower 1 to the center to the area from 1 to 2. And the points with a distance lower or equal 0.5 become scaled by a factor 4. 3/4 of these points become folded upon the points between 1 and 2. After that, a scaling of -1.5 is performed, and a scaling with a negative value is actually a rotation by 180 degrees. And the scaling of 1.5 increases the radius from 2 to 3. And now the addition is repeated as in the first iteration. The addition adds a different value to every point. The points are being shifted in all 8 directions, equally divided. Because of the box fold earlier on, several points lie on top of each other. This becomes observable as these points move in 4 different directions. In the following iterations, this transformation cannot be followed so easily anymore, because of the increased complexity. This demonstrates nicely why the addition transformation is the one most responsible for the chaotic patterns. After this, the bailout test is performed, but no point lays outside the bailout radius, and we just start over with the next iterations. And now, for the first time, points leave our bailout radius. And we mark the points with the current iteration depth color, and they start to form the image. The folding operation on both axes. The circle fold. The scaling of -1.5. The addition is performed, increasing the chaos. The folding operation on both axes. The circle fold. The scaling of -1.5. The addition is performed, increasing the chaos. The bailout operation marks the points outside the bailout radius with the current iteration color. The color of the first iterations are different shades of blue, moving on to orange later on. The scaling of -1.5. The folding operation on both axes. The circle fold. The bailout operation marks the points outside the bailout radius with the current iteration color. The color of the first iterations are different shades of blue, moving on to orange later on. The folding operation on both axes. The scaling of -1.5. The bailout operation marks the points outside the bailout radius with the current iteration color. The color of the first iterations are different shades of blue, moving on to orange later on. The scaling of -1.5. The folding operation on both axes. The circle fold. The addition is performed increasing the chaos. The scaling of -1.5. The addition is performed increasing the chaos. The bailout operation marks the points outside the bailout radius with the current iteration color. The color of the first iterations are different shades of blue, moving on to orange later on. The addition is performed increasing the chaos. The folding operation on both axes. The circle fold. The scaling of -1.5. The addition is performed increasing the chaos. The bailout operation marks the points outside the bailout radius with the current iteration color. The color of the first iterations are different shades of blue, moving on to orange later on. The scaling of -1.5. The folding operation on both axes. The addition is performed increasing the chaos. That's it. I hope you gained some knowledge, and I thank Martini Tyron for the beautiful music, and take a look at his YouTube channel that is linked below in the description. See you next time when we examine another variant of the Mandelbox Scale 2, Scale -2 and Scale -1.5 from the full view. See you next time.